I'm starting to realize that there are a lot of people that have your story,
Yeah.
which doesn't have a mentor. Like you don't have a Brian to
Yeah.
message and like, hey, what about these pants next week? Oh, free leg. Remember the free leg? Like I'm just thinking about all of these things all throughout the day, and so it just never leaves me. But I guess there are some people that they just in one ear, and then next time I see you, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's probably closer to me. Derek, I mean, I've seen you teaching class. I've been there with you time and time again. Same dudes, just don't get better. But the ladies, they're surely working their butts off. They are getting better. So what is it that they know that the guys don't know?
So I think we already know that, and obviously we're going to speak in just kind of the stereotypical roles as ladies usually go to following and guys usually go to leading. I know there's exceptions, but we're just going to say this for the general statement of typically ladies go for following first. I feel like in the beginning, ladies really catch on, and if you have a really addictive personality that wants to get better, I feel like you can be a really good follower if you dedicate a lot of time, whether in classes or other means. And I think you can be good in like maybe 3 to 6 months. Like not like super good, but just good enough for like the social floor, or just that would not be possible for a guy leader in almost any circumstance, right? 3 months is just not enough. Right? I mean, sure there might be some rare occasions, but we're just talking in general for now. But I think to go to your point, once we get past the threshold of it as a lady follower and a guy lead, once we start to get even where they're a little bit on the even playing field, I feel like women in general have found out the secret to level up past that. And that has to do with private lessons. I feel like more and more, I always seem like more and more women take private lessons than men. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know some of my guy friends that take private lessons, but I feel like the frequency of it is way more geared towards women than it is men.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't teach much, but I do teach privates. And I have maybe 5 ladies taking privates and 1 guy. And I think that ratio is kind of echoed through many other teachers. Like it's 5 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1. I mean, what's your private ratio looking like?
I teach a lot of couples, so for me it's hard to say. But if it's used for most individuals that I teach, I would say individual-wise, it's mostly women.
Well, do you think it's mostly women because you're a guy?
Probably.
Because that's like, as a guy, do I go out and take privates from another guy and then I'm like feeling weird because I'm leading another guy?
But shouldn't you? Because they're doing the thing that you want to get better at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with it, but when I take privates, whether from a lady or a man, I have different objectives. And what I mean by that is this. When I take up privates from a dude, I'm thinking about, okay, can you show me what you're doing? Can you explain to me the technique? Can I understand what's going on? That's what I'm looking for. When I'm taking a private from a lady, we might talk about technique here and there.
But you're just getting some dance time in? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
what I'm actually doing is I'm getting feedback. So, am I really doing what I think I'm doing?
Oh, I see.
Because
So they tell you to lead something, and then they feel it, and they tell you what you need to work on?
Yeah, or I go, what do you like in a lead, and what am I getting to? Am I in the right direction, or what do you want more of? Because I think that's one of the reasons why, when I teach privates, it's not necessarily technique. So as much, I mean, I do say a few technical things, but it's more of how do I feel as a follower, and like what do you like, and what can I do to dance with people who like you, who appreciate this type of follower. So I think that's probably why I see more followers taking private lessons because I think in the group class in the workshop setting, it's more about vocabulary. It's more about, I think it's very, I mean, even though there is technique, it is more vocabulary focused. And I don't think ladies really have use for vocabulary. I mean, do they really need to know what an ocho is, or do they really need to know like what a staccato is? Like most of the time, they're just taking a step, and it's the consequence or impact of the lead, not necessarily something they're necessarily doing. So I don't really think the vocabulary is really that prevalent to them.
No, definitely not. And in any sense, it usually just kind of, if they know the vocabulary, it's kind of it actually hinders their the true follow or the true ability to follow that movement or energy, whatever you need, because they know that it's supposed to be this, and they're trying to make that thing happen when it's supposed to flow organically, and so you're throwing that organic thing out the window by knowing what's coming.
So, yes, I agree with you there. But I guess I come from the mindset of, kind of like turn your brain off and let your body react to it. And in that sense, if you're building muscle memory, per se, and not necessarily thinking about it, but like your muscle memory reacts to whatever's happening, isn't that also, in a sense, kind of, building the choreography or whatever, like their own vocabulary?
No, I don't get it, because they're feeling they're more present and feeling what's going on. So why would you be developing a vocabulary?
Well, it's just because um, I guess sometimes I feel that there are some people who go on autopilot, and let's say I might just lead a front step, right? Like I'm stepping forward with my left. I'm going to pause there, but then they're already leaning and going to like the tango close per se.
Yeah.
And that's something that it's not that they were thinking about it. It's just because they've done it so many times that their body naturally does that. So I guess how do we get to the point of they're present, but they're not conditioned?
That's an interesting one. I think I think people become conditioned when there's not enough subtlety in the dance. I think that when there's more subtlety, there's more options, and when there's more options, people are more present and aware. It's kind of like if you threw a bunch of like obstacles on the dance floor, people would be more aware of the things around them, right? Just because there's more things, and so they would be more cautious. But if you didn't have those things, you just kind of, well, I'll go over here, and then there's not. They don't worry about anything necessarily.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's funny because when we do like the house party at our house, the navigation is always better because people already know it's going to be crowded and the space is going to be tight, and so there's already a sense of be present, be focused, look around, look both ways before you cross the street, kind of thing, and so the navigation tends to be better in those knowingly crowded spaces.
Okay.
Where then you have this huge dance floor and you think you have all this space.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, so when you take privates, what do you get out of it? Or what, like I've kind of said that I'm looking for this when I'm taking privates from guys. I'm looking for feedback when I'm taking privates from ladies. Like, what do you get out of privates?
So there's kind of two paths that I see when I take a private lesson. One, it's kind of more my most favorite one, which is I either dance with my partner or dance with the instructor, and I tell them, well, what do you think the most glaring thing is that you want to address from my dancing? And then we kind of go down this route of whatever they think it is, right? Now, I love that personally. Or two, I come in with an agenda like, I love the way you do these. What staccatas, can you teach me more about how to do this specific technique? And so those are the two paths that I usually have, and usually I go for the first path, which is like, can I dance with you and then we'll go over something specific, or watch me and my partner dance and you tell us what you think is the biggest problems. But it takes a really good instructor, and I found like most tango instructors are actually really good at giving personal advice, personal insight. Whereas like when it comes to group classes, it's kind of a hit or miss. But for the most part, when I've taken private lessons, I would say generally, like maybe 75 to 85% of the time, I have a great experience.
I haven't really had a bad experience with privates when I come to think about it. But I would say that group classes and workshops are definitely a different teaching skill than private lessons.
Oh yeah, for sure, 1000%.
I think that even though I get more from the private lesson, I believe that it's, in terms of teachers, it's definitely a lower barrier in terms of being a quality teacher. Because I've had privates from great teachers, and they can't teach a group class worth beans, And it's just kind of funny where it's like, some of it's time management, some of it's just organization, it's definitely a different skill set where at a private, it's just, focus on one person, not a big deal. And they can, they can throw you the kitchen sink and it's still fine, So when it comes to like, let's say ladies taking privates, what do you think that, like, what should they be getting out of this? Like, you get like, for me, it's usually just feedback, what I like in a follower, and can they reproduce that? But what would you like for them to receive?
What would I like to? Well, ultimately, I want to change like some big part of the foundation of their dance and make them think about it. I think a great private lesson, when you leave that private lesson, you feel like your brain has been broken and that your dance is just kind of out of order. That's how I feel. Like you would think that you take a private lesson and you're taking it to get better, but if your brain is not broken afterwards, to me, it's not a good private lesson, because somebody should reshape the foundation of your thought process in order for you to grow in a different direction. In order for you to grow in a different direction, your brain will feel like it's broken, because every time you do this one thing, you're doing the thing. Now you're cognizant, you're aware that, I'm doing that thing that Robert told me I shouldn't do. And now I feel it every time I'm about to do it. And so now my brain's like, don't do that. So I'm in my head all the time. And that's what I mean, that your brain should be broken. And so after a good private lesson, it takes me time to recover. When I was first starting out, I used to take private lessons pretty regularly from Brian. And I literally, and I don't know how people do this. I know some people take privates like
Weekly?
Yeah, weekly or several times a week. I told Brian, I was like, this is gonna take me at least a month to digest. I mean, this is pointless. If I schedule another private with you next week, this is a waste of time, because I'm just gonna still be working on the things we just covered on this week. So let's give me like a month, and I'll come back, and because I need some proper time between things, between private lessons. I don't know how people go, we'll just get next week or next one. Like, what? How?
Yeah, I guess it also depends like what you're getting out of the private too. Like if I'm getting a private which is more figures based, like I want to put together some choreography, maybe it's a totally different story. But if it's like a private in terms of I need you to wreck my foundation because something's not working, I'm gonna need some time also.
Well, here's the thing. I also forget that there's a lot of people that don't do what I do, which is I think about it constantly. And then I try it in the milonga. When I'm dancing with other people, I'm trying to remember, like I see the Brian's face and he's just like talking to me like, Derek, don't do that. And I'm just remembering all the time. And so maybe other people don't have that. And so they just kind of like, they take their private lesson and then they just forget about it until the next time they meet with the instructor. And so then I realize, all right, if you're that type of person, the weekly thing makes sense. But for me, I'm just constantly thinking about, I'm at the grocery store, oh yeah, Brian told me the pivot happens here. And like, it's just all day long when I'm at my job, I'm just like, oh yeah, strong, like standing leg, right? Not free leg. Like all this stuff, like next week, free leg, remember the free leg. Like I'm just thinking about all of these things all throughout the day. And so it just never leaves me. But I guess there are some people that, they just in one ear and then next time I see you, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's probably closer to me. No, because it's not that I don't listen. It's just more of I always feel that I need people to repeat things so that, and I'm more of a believer of muscle memory rather than like my actual memory. So a lot of it is like, that's why I love privates where it's just give me some drills. I just
God.
no. I mean, you might think it's a waste of time. You might think it's a waste of time, but like I'm pretty lazy. So to me, it's almost like PT. Like get in there. I need that coach to be like, all right, man. You're gonna be doing, you're doing the solo drill. I need you to do a lapis hero, lapis hero, lapis hero. Like here's a stopwatch. You better get like 50 reps in. That's something I need. Yes, there are people who are gonna tell me like, yeah, that was a waste of money. But no, it's not a waste of money.
I mean, don't you doesn't it come to you when you're thinking that throughout the day and you're just like, let me try the lapis again. And then you try and like, how come I fall here? What am I supposed to do with my left leg? Am I supposed to be this? Am I standing up straight? Am I supposed to bend my knee? These questions don't arise when you're doing it?
They arise like a month later.
Yeah.
But it's for me, it's just more of that. I need that coach. I mean, it would be nice if there was a coaching or a drill private for a cheaper price because I'm not getting a lot of technique or anything. But an hour is an hour, right? And it's just my process where I just need the muscle memory first before I could actually start attacking what's really happening. That's just my process. But actually, I had a funny question, and I was wondering, when did you decide that I need to take a private?
Well, I mean, that was one of the things that early on people told me that's how you level up again. There's the two big tips, right? One is find a tango partner immediately. That was Brian and Yuli that told me that. And the second one was just take private lessons. That's going to be a huge power up and boost early on. And those two things reign true for me when starting out. Now those things get spread apart as you advance, I feel like. But in the beginning, I feel like, man, like those things really help out a lot.
Yeah.
They're just game changers.
They are. I think for me, it's kind of funny because I was probably the guy. I didn't take my first private until maybe 2 years in.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were you doing for 2 years?
Taking group classes.
Group classes.
Yeah.
Oh my
And it took me like a
goodness.
year and a half for my first workshop, probably.
Oh, wow. Well, I was part of the Oxygen Tango Challenge, and so there was classes every day, two classes every day. So I was taking two group classes every day, and so to me, it didn't seem as valuable because I was getting it so regularly.
Yeah, no.
And so I needed something else, which was the private lesson.
Yeah. I mean, I lived far, so it was almost like I was traveling a lot just to get to group classes. And I remember, like, I was thinking, like, so one of the bad things about my character is, especially back then, I'm very much penny wise, pound foolish.
Okay, what?
That means like I pinch my pennies because I think I'm saving,
Oh.
but I'm actually doing more damage because if I just paid the pound,
You'd be better off.
I would if I actually like spent like the $50, I'd be way better off. But I'm too busy like thinking about
This
penny
is a
pinching.
better deal.
Yeah. So that was my problem. Was I was like dude, like $100 an hour, but you know what? But I can get like
Six group classes,
yeah,
7 group
for the
classes.
same price. Like why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
And that was my mentality for a long time.
I think early on I found out that group classes are, in the beginning especially, are simply just motivational based, right? It just helps you stay motivated, helps you think about the dance more, helps you encourage you to keep going.
Yeah.
I think those, in the beginning, group classes are just the best for that.
No,
But then in terms of learning, I just felt like once I had the first private lesson, and with Brian, and I was just like, wow, okay, well, this is where you learn.
Yeah, and again, it's like one of those things where I totally agree with what you're saying after I experienced the private. But it took me like a year and a half, 2 years to make that jump. And it was really Jorge Torres and Maria Blanco that actually got me there. But before that, no, I was just like, I was just doing workshops.
Hearing your story makes me just feel, one, super grateful that I had a mentor, but then I'm starting to realize that there are a lot of people that have your story,
Yeah.
which doesn't have a mentor. Like you don't have a Brian to
Yeah.
message and like, hey, what about these pants? Or like, what is it in like the, Ocho Cortado that what's the spiral mean again? Like you didn't have somebody to
No.
give you pointers. Like, where should I go for this? Is Friday good? But I had all these things, and now I'm realizing just how important that was.
Yeah, yeah. No, mentors are very big, and also it's kind of sad because sometimes I feel like the people who should be mentors, like they're either overlooked or they don't want to be mentors, or they're not available for more people.
Yeah.
But the people who are like pushing themselves out there as if like, hey, I'm gonna help you out. I'm like the community evangelist. They're probably the people that that shouldn't be in that position. I mean, it's like bless their heart. I mean, they're doing their best. But also at the same time, like, oh, that's a lot of bad information going out there.
Do you think that's why, like a lot? So do you think that maybe that's why in Argentina there are the level of dancers are better off because they have people that are family that could possibly serve as mentors?
Oh,
Like I
definitely.
never even thought about this, but yeah, like for me, I already knew Brian before he did tango, and so it was almost like an indirect source. And so for a lot of people in Argentina, they probably grow up and they have family members that dance tango, and so they, you get little imparts of wisdom here and there.
Yeah, but also there's so many more people participating in tango in Argentina.
Sure.
That even if you go to a school, people they probably are set up that way to have mentors, friends, and things like that. Where over here, I think,
You're just lost in the sea.
well, it's not that we're just lost in the sea. I think a lot of it is, we're so infatuated with our own personal space that we don't intermingle all that well.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
so you add that to, being very cheap and not like wanting to like dish out. Well, now it's like $150 an hour, pretty much. To dish out that
Is that
kind
the
of
standard rate for a private now?
yeah, 125, 150.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Like standard rate, seriously, it's like back in the day it was like $100. Now it's like 125 for a local or 150 for a really good local, and 150 is kind of like the standard rate for traveling, like for like mid-high level traveling.
I typically charge 100 to 125. I never charge any more than that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, I mean, everyone's got their rates. Market dictates, and yeah.
Yeah.
But no, but I think it's one of those things where like if you want to convince the men out there to take privates, like what do you get out of private that you don't get in a workshop or that you don't get in a group class? Because I think that's something people should hear, because we can all say, oh, this is where you really learn, this is where you really level up. But let's just say someone doesn't have the funds, or they don't manage it well enough, and they like the kudos in the group classes, because that's one of the reasons why I didn't take privates, because I was going to class regularly, and all the teachers were like, oh yeah, you're doing great, you're seeing a lot of improvement, and it was a lot of fluff that they were giving me.
It's true. The private is the bitter truth. And that's why you pay the money, and that's why it turns out more beneficial to you. It is that harsh medicine that you have to swallow when there's no chaser. You have to swallow it straight up. And I think that's why it's so beneficial, because in the group lesson, teachers are not going to tell you your technique's terrible, that your musicality is trash, that you have no, you're not using the ground. Like they're not going to tell you these things because they're going to hurt your feelings. You might not come back. And so,
Well, it's not just that. It's not just hurting your feelings. It might offend other people too. Just because, let's say, if I was a teacher and I'm ripping on you, Derek,
Yeah.
and then Joe over the corner there's like, oh my God, Rob's so mean. Is he the right teacher? So there's this idea of like, oh, we gotta build a safe environment where everyone's having fun, and unfortunately, like,
the group classes are there to make you feel good. The private's there to give you the bitter truth.
yeah. So definitely, I think that's the one thing that ladies they're more in tune with than guys, because I think guys are just so focus on the vocabulary. And, you know, again, like, since I'm gonna say this, I didn't receive a lot of compliments. So when the teachers started giving me compliments, I'm like, that's my zone. I'm gonna go there to feel good, you know. You know, hey, I'm not. I mean, looking back, that's probably what I did. Yeah, and definitely I would say that first private with Jorge, because I thought Jorge was amazing. Yeah, but to be honest with you, the big sell was actually Maria Blanco.
Yeah, of course.
You know, oh man, I was heads over heels for her, and I'm like, okay. And then afterwards, like, I was just thinking, like, just dancing with her was worth it. She gave me a lot of good tips, but like, even if she said nothing, I was like, oh my god, like
Man.
dream come true. Like, I'm good. You know?
I've never been that guy, but I can understand why people do that. It makes perfect sense. I've just never been that person, but that is interesting. But yeah, I definitely, and I think we both do. I would strongly recommend that you take a private lesson, maybe 2 months in, a month and a half in. That would probably be the most optimal time if I wanted to think looking back. At least a month and a half, 2 months in. Start taking a private lesson. They'll tell you the truth, and maybe you can start your foundation earlier on than later. Because you don't want to be taking all these group classes, and then lo and behold, you take your first private lesson like Rob here 2 years later, and you're like, oh man, like everything I learned, like I need to just like toss aside.
Yeah.
In a way, kind of, right? To reshape your structure. That's kind of what happens a lot in tango. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to our this video of left foot, right foot, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Left Foot, Right Foot.
We appreciate your support, and make sure you click that subscribe button and that like button. It really helps with the algorithm, and also you receive all our latest updates. Thank you.